Hello everyone, welcome to Lesson 1 Personal Assignment Tutorial. So for the first 4 lessons, you're going to have a solution, a lot more guidance, but as you can see, the instructions aren't step by step. This class is meant to prepare you for a job, and whenever you work for a company, you're typically going to have a list of things you need to do, but they're not always going to be crystal clear. You have to use your resources and figure out how to solve the problem. So let's dive right into it. Let's start by making a GitHub repository. One thing to note is you always want your repository to be public for this class so that it can be graded. If you haven't initialized the Git repository, we're going to copy this code. And if you already made one previously, you can just follow along here. Perfect. PM init. I'm just going to skip through all these, but you can customize it. It's just creating settings for your package.json, which is now generated. Next, we need to install TypeScript. So TypeScript is a dev dependency, so we're going to add --save--dev at the end. And our node modules directory is formed. This stores all the packages you install. So we also can install dependencies as well. The difference between dev dependencies and dependencies is dev dependencies are for things that are related to development. We're also going to need to install a few other packages. So you can hit the up arrow on your terminal to restore the previous command you typed in. So we can switch out TypeScript with @type/node. And we'll do it again with a few other packages. We also need nodemon. And since we're going to be using express, @type/express. So instead of --save--dev, we're just going to do npm install express. Perfect. Since we're using TypeScript, we're going to need to make a tsconfig.json. So you can manually create one with tsc init, and it creates a new tsconfig.json and explains what each of these proper compiler options does. So just to simplify things, I'm going to replace it with this shorter version over here. So whenever we're using TypeScript, we're transpiling from TypeScript to JavaScript. So essentially what that means is we have a compiler that's looking at how to make it very efficient JavaScript to reduce bugs and to make our program optimized for production. Alright, now we can dive into our code. Let's make a new file called server.ts. So everything in TypeScript ends in .ts. As you can see, if you use the source control with Git, it's going to show thousands of different files that need to be or ready to be staged. The problem is we don't want the node modules, that's those thousands of files, to go to GitHub. These can be installed with npm install, and it just looks at your dependencies in your package.json and your dev dependencies, and it creates thousands of files in here. So we don't want that going to GitHub. So in order to block that, we're going to add a new file called a .gitignore. And then we can put the directory of node modules there. So node modules, and since it's a directory, we can put a / at the end of it. And as you can see, it's no longer a change that needs to be staged. They're ignored. Let's go into our server.ts now, and we can start coding. So at the top, let's import what we need. So we're going to need express. We need it from the express package. We also need to create an express app. So whenever we create a backend, we need a port to listen on. So const port, and we can make it a number. So here, what we did is we want it to default to process.env.port, which when you use render later, they're gonna give a port, and we can't control what port they open on their service. So if we're not using render, this is the OR operator, we're gonna go to port 8080. So then it's gonna have a door where you can communicate with the back end through that port. Next, we want to listen, so app.listen, and we want to listen on the port. Perfect. We're going to log that we're listening on the port. And later in the course, we're going to use some formatting tools that'll make this a lot easier. So it's always in the perfect format, whatever you customize it to be. So now let's try starting our project. Let's kick this off with npm start. Missing script start. So what this means is in our package.json, we only have one script right now. And this one script is telling that we can do test, which right now is just outputting a message to the console. So let's add some new scripts. We want to build script, which is going to do npx CSE, which is compiling for TypeScript. And we need a start script. So let's look what's going wrong. We need a comma here. And inside our start script, we also want to build it before we start it to TypeScript. So we'll do npm run build and node disk/index.js. So the reason it's .js, when we compile from TypeScript to JavaScript, we're gonna run the JavaScript version in the dist folder server.js. That's what TypeScript has made once it converted the TypeScript to JavaScript. So you don't ever have to read this really. TypeScript handles it all for you. So let's look at this error message, module not found. So it says it can't find index.js. So let's look at our package.json. And as you can see in the main, it has index.js. We named it server.ts. So let's switch this to server.ts. And then right here in the dist folder, it's server.js. So we need to change it here to server.js. Perfect. Now let's run npm start. Perfect, our server's running on port 8080. So now we need to create some routes. So obviously you could just add it into this file, but you could end up having thousands of routes one day. So in order to make it more organized, we're going to make a new folder called routes. And at the top, we need to import it. So import routes. And then I can put the path in. So we don't have any, the reason it's mad is we don't have any, its value is never read, and we also need to add some routes here. So in order to add some routes, make a new file called index.ts. You can name it whatever you want, as long as you configure it properly. And once we import the routes, we need to use the routes. So let's do app.use. So whenever we go to the home route, it's gonna look at the routes in the routes file. So looks like it's still angry, can't find it, or its corresponding type declarations. Okay, so inside our index.ts and our routes, let's start writing them up. So we need to import router request response from express and const routes as a type of router. So now we have a router, and with this we can make, let's make an individual route to go to When you go to the home page of the website, this is what it's going to do. So whenever we get this is a home page. If we did /hello, it would be when you go to the website /hello. So we have a request and a response. So response.res stands for response. So response.send hello world. Whenever we go to the home site, it should say respond with hello world. We need to export this. So export default routes. And since we named it router, we put router. Go back to the server.ts. If it's still getting angry at you, add / in the name of the route here. Sometimes the TypeScript configuration just gets angry if you don't follow the rules perfectly. So now let's run it with npm start. Perfect. So now we can go to the web browser. We'll go to localhost 8080, and here we go, hello world. Alright, so now let's change a few things to make it easier when developing the future. So we installed NodeMon earlier. Instead of just using regular Node, we're going to put NodeMon. This is good for debugging in the terminal. So as you can see, we're using NodeMon now for here. Another thing is, it's not going to be feasible to test thousands of routes in the web browser. So we're going to create a .rest file. There's many other tools as well you can use. Alright, so we're going to need an extension from VS Code for the REST. So you go to your extension and type in REST, install this REST client. Then in your .rest file, we can make some routes to make this easier. So these routes in our .rest file will allow us to test them out. So right now we only have a route on our home page. So in order to test it out, each one should be separated by 3 pound symbols. We're going to type get in all capital and put the route. So HTTP. So it'll just be localhost 8080 and the home route, which is we just have a / here. We hit send request. We got a response, hello world, perfect. Let's go back into our routes in our index.ts. And typically whenever we have a backend on a server, we're going to have tons of logic. We're not just going to be sending a message back to the user. So to organize this, we want to make a new place to handle our logic. So we're going to make a new folder called controllers. And in here, we're going to have our index.ts. This way, the routes will just have all the routes, and all the logic for the routes will be handled in the controllers. All right, so we're going to need to import request and response again. Press. Now let's make a welcome for one of our routes, a welcome route. So we're just going to send hello world, and then let's make a hello or a welcome. Let's make a welcome John route. Perfect. So we need to export these. So export. We have our welcome John. Perfect. All right, let's go back to our routes index.ts. So we're no longer going to need this. It's our logic. We're just it's going to be in our controllers and it's just going to be all of our routes here. So we're going to direct it to our controllers. So we need to import our controller first. So we can do import stars controllers. Star means all. So we could individually do it, or we could import all of them. We need to add our route. So router.get. If we get our home route, controllers.welcome. You remember that we named it welcome and welcome John. So let's make a route for John. So whenever we go to /John, we're going to get controllers.welcome John. Perfect. So now let's go to the website. So if we go to our web browser, we can do /John. We have hello John, perfect. So just remember, we're going to have potentially thousands of these one day. So it's best just to have them all in a file or in a place you can automate them. So let's add a get for John. So get And our route is for John, so let's send the request. Hello, John, perfect. All right, so let's look at the instructions. So we want to return the name of someone we know. So let's go to the controller and just change that to John Smith. So that way we meet the project requirements. And next we need to push to GitHub. So if you go up here to the source control, you can do it through here, or you can do it through the terminal, whatever you prefer. So let's commit these changes. Do commit and sync. And we'll give it a message. Perfect. So now if we go to our GitHub, we should see it in our repositories. Perfect. So now let's put it on render, since that's the third requirement. So if we go to our render dashboard, we're going to create a new web service. And we can connect a repository here. You can also just paste a public repository link into here. So let's give it a name. So if you ever have another directory, make sure that the root directory is specified here. We have it in the root directory, so we're fine. We don't have to change that. We want to change the build command to npm install. And for start command, so if you remember in our package.json, we have our scripts listed here. So we have test, build, and start. Test doesn't really do anything at the moment except for output a message. So we want to do npm start. So you always type the word run for whenever you're running a script, other than start, but so just in case, we're going to put npm run start. Scroll down, we can hit create web service. Sometimes it'll take a while. It just depends on how many people are using it at a time. All right, let's go to our link. Perfect. We have our John route as well. We can also add these to our .rest file. Perfect. Hello people, and then John Smith. Perfect. We're all set. Going back to our rubric, let's make sure we have everything. So shows data, someone you know on the home page. So you're just going to put someone's name of someone you know there. Perfect. Functionality. The home route is requested. Yep. Controllers folder that has a function for each route. Yep. And you just need to make a quick 1-minute video. Just make sure to submit all 3 links, which is your GitHub link to your repository, your render link, and your YouTube video link. Hope you have a great day.